Now I'm going to jump to the end, and the conclusion, and that is that if the Ayurvedic model is worth anything, it should be able to change what we see in medicine today. And we have some evidence. So how would we do this? Say we take a university, Thomas Jefferson University, and we take all of the faculty and staff, and we give them one of the primary modalities of Ayurveda, which is the practice of meditation. And we take a look 5 years down the road at their healthcare utilization. Everybody working for the university supplies a healthcare plan. We can take a look at that, and we can see what's happened with utilization, and let's compare it to another university or several other universities and see what's happened. Well, fortunately for us, somebody already did this. Somebody took a university where everyone was meditating and realized, oh, we have Blue Cross Blue Shield of Iowa. We should have a great data pool that we can take a look at and start to compare to other universities. And they did this, and this is what they found. They found a 55% decrease in both inpatient and outpatient utilization. And they found an 87% decrease in cardiovascular disease and a 55% decrease in benign and malignant tumors. Now think about that for a moment. If I had a pill that could reduce cardiovascular disease by 87%, you would have heard of me long before today. But because it doesn't fit our model in medicine, because it's not a biochemical substance that we're putting into the body, we have overlooked this kind of information. Now, for those of you who are interested in research, you could say, well, maybe they were comparing apples and oranges. You know, it's not quite right if they take another university. So what another individual did was say, let's look to Canada. Canada also keeps nice records on each individual, and let's use each individual as their own control. And so a gentleman by the name of Robert Heron did just that, and he found 7% per year decrease in expenditures. So that after 5 years, actually after 7 years, I should say, he was showing the same information, this close to a 50% reduction in healthcare costs in these individuals who were practicing one aspect of Ayurveda. And so there's something here worth our consideration, and for us to understand it, we really have to look at redefining and coming to an understanding of who we are. Because who we are, if we're a psychologist, we'll define problems in terms of psychological impulses. If we're a biochemist, or if we're in modern medicine, we'll look at biochemical processes. If we define the individual to be a collection of their genetics, then we'll define things just along those lines and look to how can we alter. It will determine our treatments. How can we alter the genetics and what gets expressed? So how we assess, how we define who we are, determines both what we'll assess, what we'll diagnose, and how we'll treat. And will also determine what kind of outcomes we can achieve, and also what we may be missing. So who are we? You know, in Yoga and Ayurveda, we have a radically different view of who we are. And there's a consistency between these two. And that is because yoga is actually a part of Ayurveda, and Ayurveda is a part of yoga. Because they are coming from the same source, an understanding of how we work, understanding of us as human beings as being an expression of consciousness. And this is a little bit abstract. When we talk about consciousness, most people think of it as an abstraction because most of us have, without any training, not been able to experience consciousness without impressions. We've not been able to experience consciousness itself. Most people's minds are too busy to experience consciousness itself and really to know what it is. If we think of this as an analogy of a camera, and the camera is looking at various scenes. When the scene is imprinted on the film, we lose track of what that film was. The film actually changes. And most of us are busy pointing the camera in different directions, and we don't realize what the film is. We don't observe what the film is with no impressions on it. It's difficult to take the camera, turn it around, back on itself, to look at the film with the camera itself. It's very tricky. And for that, we have certain technologies. Consciousness is that which receives the impressions. Consciousness is that which witnesses the experience. It is that screen onto which the movie of life is projected. And most of the time, consciousness is not experienced separately from the impressions that we witness. Most of the time, we get overshadowed by whatever impression is coming to the mind, whether it be sensations, whether it be thoughts, whether it be emotions, whether it be feelings like that. And so it's difficult for us to separate out the impressions and what we identify with from consciousness itself. And so what I would like to present to you is that what we typically experience ourselves as is not consciousness. We typically think of ourselves as isolated, as being separate from everything else in creation, and separate from everyone else, that we have this hard outer body, that I like to call this the egg model. It's sort of, you have this hard outer shell. It limits us, it separates us. Each appears to be self-contained. Each egg is different from each egg, and all the mushy stuff is on the inside. And there's no connection between any other egg. And that's exactly the way most people experience themselves. So this is really the illusion that is created by the physical body. This is the illusion that comes about from us identifying with the body. And what you need to know is that the body is basically an illusion.